A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit. This is Wright Brennan with Lost in the Midlands, and today I'm here with a veteran, a businessman, a man running for office. He's extremely busy, Mr. Tre Bray. Thanks for hanging out today.
Right, I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be here. I have to say this is my first podcast. Done plenty of interviews, but first podcast, so I'm excited.
Welcome. Well, then we have a high standard to set here today, don't we? That was an awesome quote that I just read, and I'd never heard that quote before.
Oh, good.
How does that resonate with you?
A couple ways. First off, it's public servant.
Yeah.
You know, being public servant is extremely important, and that means that you're doing something that might not be tangible immediately.
Yep.
And that quote sits that. And then the other thing is I'm a pretty conservative person, but I'm also a huge conservationist, which sometimes in the world of politics people can think that that's, oil and water.
Yeah.
And so I really love it. I'm on a school board currently, and I pushed for a native plant policy. Unfortunately, it failed, but, our community, both the infrastructure and the ecosystem, are extremely important on kind of what we are doing to set ourselves up for a fantastic next generation.
Well, your mind's always about the community. I can tell, service is such a huge part of your life. You're on you said the school board. I mean, there's just so many pieces here. But before we get into some of that stuff, I'd love to hear about your beginnings, kind of where you grew up.
Gotcha, yeah. So I am Cayce through and through. I think it was my great-great-grandfather moved to Cayce from somewhere in Georgia, Lily Pond, Georgia. And so, the three of those generations all were in the same house.
Yeah.
I grew up on what was called Indigo, but I Avenue in Cayce.
Okay.
In college, I lived on M, and then when my wife and I got married and bought a house, we bought a house on N. So I've gone outside of some military deployments and a 3-year gig in D.C. I've done a 5x5 little square. I was had a great family. My father was an athletic director and teacher at BC. So I grew up, and my mom was an athletic trainer, so I grew up on every sports field and court possible.
Yeah.
I was usually my babysitter. My dad being kind of a pillar of that community, I'd spend the nights driving kids home in the back of the truck, after practices. And so that I was a very sports-oriented person, and then that
Cool.
kind of competition, but also, getting knocked down and then picking your brother back up type of thing. It really kind of led into the military career, which is that same concept of, we're going to go hard.
Yeah.
And then that go hard is going to end up being that we build this brotherhood and sisterhood that's, unparalleled to really about anything else. And I've been really lucky to carry that into the business world. I have some amazing regional managers across the country,
Yeah.
and we are that brotherhood. And then just kind of about me on the growing up, I met my wife at Clemson, even though I'm a Carolina fan, in 2005. And she's just been my rock ever since then.
Awesome.
We've been married for 13 years, about to be 14.
Congrats.
We've got 2 awesome kiddos that keep us worn down, but we still try to find time to make date nights and live that part of it. So I'm a extremely blessed person, and I think that's one of the reasons that it's not just me; it's me and my family are able to give back. And I think giving back is where you start to really kind of reap the rewards of life. You always get more when you give, is at least what I've found so far.
Yeah, that's really cool. That sounds like some giver's gain. I'm going to shout out to Curtis over here on B&I stuff. So, just hearing part of your story, you went into the military, obviously another just piece of service that you've done in the community. You got extremely deep roots in Cayce. I mean, you must have seen a lot of things change over the years too. From the beginning to today, a lot has had to have changed.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the worst parts about I lost my father in 2013 is
Sorry to hear that.
you always thanks. I had 28 years with an amazing father, and that's more than most, so I can't be anything but blessed. But one of the things that I kind of miss the most is hearing the stories. Because, that older generation, they could ride by and say, oh, that was X, Y, and Z's house, and we played ball there, and his mom used to be the one who'd give us, the lunches, or his dad would be the one with the belt, or, any of those things. But Cayce still has that real kind of nucleus neighborhood feel, even though, both of y'all are Richland County guys originally, and we're probably closer in the Cayce, West Columbia area to the capital than y'all probably grew up. but you have that kind of smaller town filled on the other side of the river. Like the river is so wide, that we don't have 5 bridges over it within a tiny span. But yeah, it's changed a lot, but it's also hasn't changed much. I think one of the good personifications of the Cayce area is actually BC High School. It's got that old timey look. It's got to be the best looking school in South Carolina. But on the inside, there's new, innovative stuff going on. There's change, but it still has that kind of core feel. So, Knox Abbott still has Hamburger Hill. State Street still State Street. And a bunch of it is the same, and a bunch of it is changing. So I think both are needed.
Yeah, it's a special place on the other side of the river.
Right, absolutely.
I'm 2 years in. I love it over here in Cayce. So shout out to Cayce.
Fantastic.
It's a fun place to be. Tell me a little bit about what you are doing now, aside from, I know you are running for mayor, which is awesome, but business-wise, what are you doing?
Yep. So running for mayor and then being on the school board. If when we win, we'll have to drop the school board side. But at the same time, we'll keep doing our business career. When I got out of the military, I switched over to a DoD contract world. I think it was 2013, 2014. I was able to quickly roll up from the state level to a regional level to a national level. And then 2016, I was able to become the program manager of one of the larger DoD contracts for the National Guard. And my guys all across the 54 states and territories do a fantastic job of providing risk reduction services, mainly around substance abuse prevention and suicide prevention. So they're going out and kind of touching all of these soldiers and airmen in the National Guard all across. I think there's about 500,000 of them.
Wow.
Giving them prevention training, and then if a soldier or airman slips up, making sure they're getting the case management they need so that they can kind of right their wrongs. We all make mistakes, and so their job is to kind of say, hey, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. Get yourself back, right the ship, and get back into being in the lines or in the ranks.
Yeah, that's an amazing service you guys are doing. That really is awesome. So I appreciate all the service you're doing. And now I want to talk about your political aspirations. Like, maybe tell me first, like, what do you think's going well in Cayce? Like, where do you think, where's the pretty side of things?
I mean, there's a ton of it. Like I said, Cayce has that kind of that soul that I think will always be there.
Yeah.
And you can't just make that. That's something that takes years and years to build and to kind of have. So that's always right. We've got Knox Abbott looks as good as it's looked in a long time. It's easy for Knox Abbott. It's easy for Cayce to be a pass-through city. Yeah. You've got a lot of people and personnel outside kind of going northwest or southeast area and coming through and trying to get to Cayce. So Knox Abbott can quickly deteriorate. But over the past 10, 12 years, we still got some work to do. We got some utility lines that need to, they raised some, but they forgot to get rid of the middle ones yet, or they didn't make it a big enough issue. So a lot of that, there's some drainage work that is finally getting done.
Yeah.
That's been a bane of many people's existence for years and years and years. So we're starting to see that kind of take root and grow, probably a little slower than a lot of people would like, but it's still happening. The people of Cayce are great. I saw that recently, just the downtown metro area is one of the top places for millennials to move to across the U.S. And I mean, we still have really good values, price values, home values. So there's a lot of great stuff going there.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is Wright Brennan, the owner of C. Wright Roofing. When it comes to the maintenance of your roof, you want to know that you have an experienced team that knows what they're doing. And with 10 years in the business, we check all the boxes. Leaky roof, storm damage, or just overdue on maintenance, give us a call at 803-828-4181 for a free estimate. Again, that's 803-828-4181. And remember, our commitment is to roof it the right way. Tell me a little bit about the challenges you want to tackle in the area.
Absolutely. Fundamentally, I think in the world of government, municipal government is the most important, because if people can have buy-in to their community and to their politics, then they have buy-in to making sure that it's better, and they get kind of like what we had, the esprit de corps in the military. So you start having that pride in your city, which comes with being able to talk to your councilman, then you can have that state pride or that county pride, and it goes up. One of the things that, I'm an Army guy, but one of the things I always relished and loved about the Marines is in their basic training, they do 2 extra weeks of just giving the history.
Oh, wow.
And what that does is, if you ever met a jarhead, they love being a jarhead, and a lot of it comes from that 2 weeks of just history of, hey, we're awesome. You're part of something bigger and better, and people need to be a part of something bigger and better. So having that, we have slipped into, in my opinion, a strong mayor concept. And what that means is that a lot of people, I was knocking on doors yesterday, a lot of people don't even know their councilman. They don't see them in newsletters or anything of that sort. So I want to be able to bring back our form of government, which is called a council manager government.
Okay.
And that idea is that if you're living in Broad Acres, then you know that Mr. Jenkins is your councilman, and you go to him with any of your issues or any of your good ideas. It doesn't need to just be negative. And then he brings them to the council. The council has 4 of those councilmen plus the at-large councilman, which is the mayor.
Yeah.
They put it on the agenda. We discuss it as a group. It is a majority vote that goes through. And then it's given to the manager, who that group of 5 hires and holds accountable for making the services flow.
Right.
It's not the mayor talking to the city manager daily and saying, hey, I want to make sure that we make this part of the River Darts district here, and I want that property changed. No, it's not one person. It is we should be empowering the people of our district and then our city. And so I would love to see that's going to be number 1. Number 2, I don't know, and at least in my professional career, I don't know a single board, a corporate board or a nonprofit board, that keeps the chairman for more than 8 to 12 years.
Yeah.
It's just not a good practice. The mayor is supposed to be nothing more really than the chairman of the board, or the chairman of the council, if you will. So one of the things that I would like to put on the agenda right away is actual having term limits.
Okay.
We've got amazing people all across Cayce. There's tons of talent that can run through it. We don't need to have 20-year politicians and 30-year politicians. And again, if you start to have 4 years in and out, that's probably a little too tough. I've been on the school board for 3 years, and I'm still learning stuff every day. So there's a learning period. It's not a full-time job where you're doing it every day, So there's a need for a kind of an on-ramp, but that off-ramp needs to be 12 years max. I don't think we need to even have the decision of, hey, do you want a mayor going for year 19? No, you don't. That shouldn't even be an option on our ordinances. We should stop that. And tons of politicians talk term limits because they think it sounds good, but I mean it. We're going to put it on the agenda. If 3 people don't vote for it, 3 people don't vote for it. But now each person in the city can talk to their councilman and say why they agree with it or disagree with it, and their councilman, if they're doing what's right, should make the vote based off of what their constituents think. And I think if we do the forms of politics the way they were built, it just wins. It's a win-win for everyone.
Well, you've got a deep understanding of municipal politics. Did you go to school for this?
No. I went to school for civil engineering. Got really bored with it in the first semester. Wasn't really kind of my thing. Switched over to the military. Did Army, military, police. Loved that. Did some construction because I was in the National Guard. Kind of was finding my way as a young man. Spent some time overseas, and that kind of helps you really find your way. But no, I just have always loved debate and civics, and I think there's the governors right now, and I think it's the Utah governor or New Hampshire governor, but they have this initiative of civility called Disagree Better, and I love that. I would love to start seeing us do that on the lower level. Yeah, it's easy to agree with people, but when you have to disagree, there's a lot of people that don't have the confidence to disagree, so they just kind of go with the flow, whoever's the loudest voice, and that's not good. And then there's a lot of people who, hey, are you a Carolina or Clemson fan?
Well, I'm a Gamecock. I'm a Terrier.
Okay, Wofford, there you go. So, like, you and I may agree that we're Carolina fans, but that doesn't mean that we agree on everything. And it's the same in the world of politics. You may agree that native plants are important, but we might also disagree on X, Y, and Z. And I think that's, we get trained into this party politic world. And I think what we really need to do is get back to the specifics and be able to disagree on stuff and it not become so dichotomous of you're either on one side or the other. That doesn't behoove anyone except for career politicians who want to keep you divided. Yeah, wow. That's well said. And let me ask you a little bit about the campaigning itself. We were talking just before this about, going door to door. I was explaining, my experience as a roofer. I'm guilty of knocking on doors looking for customers. What are some of the challenges of just running a campaign? It's got to be a lot of work. Biggest challenge is, yes, it's a lot of work, but the biggest challenge is what it does on your family. You know, some people they never got civics. My wife was accosted in a Walmart recently for absolutely no reason by like a 70-year-old man, cowardly type of thing. You can never control those folks. They're always going to be there. That's the hardest part. Knocking on the doors is the second hardest part. I made a promise, or we made a promise that we're going to knock on every voter's door in the city of Cayce before the election.
Awesome.
We bit off probably a bit more than we may be able to chew because there's a bunch of houses. But it's great because you get to not only see all of the city. Like I said, I've been there for almost 40 years, and I think there's maybe 3 roads that I have learned that I didn't know.
Yeah.
But you get to see it, but you also get to feel the community. And walking in North Edenwood is completely different than Churchill Heights, which is completely different than Hunter's Mill, but it's still the same community. It's just feeling kind of how people are different. I met a man yesterday who said he'd been in Edenwood for 53 years. Don't quote me, maybe he said 52 or something, but in the 50s. And he was talking about how he had never met a politician in Cayce. And, that kind of breaks your heart a little bit. If we're going to have buy-in at the local level, then you need to know, and I'm not blaming him, but we've got to meet people where they're at. And that doesn't just mean going to the 2 or 3 events a year. That means you need to be known in your community, especially at that councilman level, so that people know who to go reach to. There's always going to be a better idea out there that could be shared, and if we're not crowdsourcing our community for those better ideas, we're not getting the best ideas. And there's always concerns out there, and if we're not hearing those concerns directly, then it's just festering in this hearsay kind of bubble back here until it explodes, and then people are like, I don't like my city, and that just doesn't do any positive. So the more conversation we can have, the more that we can meet and know our constituents, the better that we can represent them.
Yeah, wow. Let me ask you what you would say to a young man who is thinking about getting into politics, wants to serve.
Do it.
Do it.
Yeah, I think everybody, my wife and I were talking about this a couple nights ago. I think everybody should do it once.
Yeah, cool.
Even if you feel you have a flying chance of ever making 5 votes on the ballot, you just learn so much about people and your community. Running for school board is a large area.
Yeah.
I think when I ran for school board, I got 6,800 votes.
Wow.
The mayor vote's probably going to have 3,000 total votes. So it's just you're driving around and you're putting these signs out and you're talking to people, but you just learn so much. And I think one of the things that I'm most concerned about our society going forward is, especially with the younger generation, they get on their phones and they go hide in the 4 walls of their room, and they don't get out and experience stuff. And experience is important because you learn to fail, and you realize that failing is not as scary as you thought it was.
Yeah.
It's the not to be graphic, but you're always scared of getting punched in the face until you get punched in the face.
Right.
And you realize it's okay. Well, it hurts a little, but you keep moving.
Yep.
And these kids, they're not stepping out and failing. And when they're not failing, the world just gets scarier and scarier, and the victimhood gets bigger and bigger. And so getting people out there you don't even have to run for a political spot. There's tons of committees, beautification boards, all kinds of stuff. I think y'all said y'all are BNI guys. You could go there and then be a treasurer or a president. Get out there and do something so that you can see the tough decisions that need to be made at the top.
Yeah.
You can see the struggles people deal with. And, I struggle with empathy. I wasn't born an extremely empathetic person. But the more that you're with people, the more that you see the issues they have, and it becomes much easier to walk in their shoes when it's time to.
Yeah.
So 100% do it. That's quote of the day. Do it. Get out there and try it.
Heck yeah, I love that. What final message? Anything that the audience hasn't heard that you want to relay to the people of Cayce, or to a young man sitting around on his phone?
Sitting on his phone. Hopefully he's watching the podcast, right?
Podcast,
at least learning something. I'll say one of the big things with the phones is I was never a big reader. I was a sports guy, I guess. I was good in the academic world, but I just never spent much time reading. And probably some of it's ADHD world, but I started doing audiobooks.
Cool.
And man, it has opened a whole new world. So hopefully there's some benefits. But to your question, what would I tell the audience? One last thing: treat people right. Be able to go to sleep peaceably in the evening because you've done things throughout the day, even if they were hard, that were the right thing to do. I think if we all kind of get to that mantra of we do the minutia right,
yeah.
big stuff kind of comes together. You don't have to make, I've always kind of thought about a book idea of trending up. You don't have to be perfect tomorrow. As long as you're just trending up, as long as you're treating the person you see when you're walking through Walmart or the person on the road, that's my guilty one, like not blowing the horn. Living in D.C. made me a terribly aggressive driver when I was already one. But just being that, if we start making the micro differences individually across the thing, then our community goes up. And at the end of the day, we're social creatures. We need to be around and with people. And if we're building and fostering a community where it's fun to be around people, I think that's our goal, right?
Yeah, awesome message. Where can people find you who are interested in what you're doing politically?
Absolutely. Thanks. I was telling Mr. Higgins in an interview Friday that thanks for asking that question because I always forget that. The other one I always forget, at the chagrin of my wife, is taking a picture of things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm terrible at those two things. But where can you find me? First off, even when I ran and won on the school board, I always put my personal cell phone out there. So you can type in Tre Bray or Abbott Bray, and I guarantee you'll find my phone number. It's 803-513-0122. Text, call. If I can't get you, I'll call you back. But our website is voteforbray, all one word, .com. That's kind of like the nucleus of where you can get more information, email, website, phone number, or email, phone number. Our platform, kind of the main platform pieces. And then I try to stay as active as I can on social media, mainly Facebook. I think that's kind of just the biggest one. I don't have the ability to switch from Twitter to Instagram to Facebook. I didn't learn that skill well enough. But on Facebook, you can either find my personal, if you ever want to reach out on the personal, it's Tre Bray. But then our campaign one is Abbott Bray for mayor. And kind of to Curtis over there, the reason it's Tre or Abbott is my name is Abbott Bray the Third. Way before I knew what that meant, people started calling me Tre. So, I go by Abbott, I go by Tre, I go by Bray from the military side. Whatever makes whoever's saying my name most comfortable works for me.
Well, Tre, this has been awesome. I've learned a ton. You got a lot of awesome, exciting stuff going on, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
I'm extremely grateful for you having me, right? Y'all are a stand-up group of gentlemen, and I am more than appreciative of y'all having me.
Heck yeah, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
Hey everyone, many thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a follow and click the bell to stay up to date on future episodes, or click the link to watch another previous episode. Also, don't forget to like, share, and please leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your feedback.